there, and welcome to part 2 of my series about how to dress for winter operations. If you didn't see last week's episode, I covered normal clothing for normal operations, and in this episode I'm gonna cover more emergency rated equipment, like what I bring in case things doesn't go well. As you can see, the weather has changed significantly. It's about 15 degrees Celsius warmer than it was last week when I filmed just a few hundred meters over there. But there's still snow and ice everywhere. So this is Western Norwegian winter at its finest. It's changing all the time. What you bring of equipment is very dependent on where you live and what kind of expedition you're going to. If you're going to some sort of forest expedition, then you need some types of equipment. If you're going high up in the mountains, you need something completely else. So I'm going to cover some of the different types of equipment that I bring to different types of trips here. The first one, which would be very relevant if I was stupid enough to go out on that lake, would be spikes like this. These are ice spikes, and they're just spiky things that you can push into the ice in case you go through. There's also a whistle in here. This is a lifesaver, and I would never go onto ice without this. But I would also never go onto ice unless I was insanely secure that it was actually safe, especially if I was hiking alone and nobody knew where I was. That can easily be a death sentence. So be very, very careful around ice and always bring something like this. In Norway, we have a set of 9 golden rules for traveling safely in the mountains, and one of them is dig down in time. And that's because snow is insulating. If you've been out in a blizzard, you know that snow and getting behind some sort of snow wall is a lot warmer than being out in the blizzard itself. So if I'm going to a place where that would be relevant, I will always bring some sort of collapsible shovel like this. This has detachable handles. It's a rugged shovel, and this part is made of steel and the handle is made of aluminium. The reason why I'm using a steel shovel is because aluminium shovels really suck. I've tried a few, at least the few like cheap lightweight ones you can buy, for example, on eBay or something like that. And just the smallest amount of damage to them means that they collapse completely and they're completely useless. This one, I've tested it in a lot of snow, and I feel comfortable having this one as a life-saving device. So if you get some, try it out and be sure that it's actually a good shovel to bring for your hikes. Of course, it should also be very lightweight. This is less than a kilo, so for a hike like that, it's worth it. I would not carry something a lot heavier than this. When you look at the marshlands around me here, which is probably very reminiscent about northern Scotland or something like that, you won't see very much that will burn very well. And for that reason, I'm always bringing some cheater bags, like we call these in Scouts. This is just paraffin wax, and they will make a lot of things burn. I'm not sure if I could get anything to burn very well around here, actually. Everything here is soaking wet or it's completely fresh. There's very, very little dead wood lying around, and the dead wood that's lying around has been exposed to rain and wind for years, so it's probably completely useless. To light it, I'm using stormproof matches. This is a waterproof container that contains some stormproof matches, and there are a lot of types of these. You can see I've actually used quite a few of them, and they burn completely differently from normal matches, at least modern matches. So if I scratch this, you can see here, this one broke. And if I scratch the next one, that didn't light, and that didn't light. So I would highly recommend, firstly, don't buy these ones, and probably you can't because you're not in Norway. But if you buy some, get some from a reputable brand and make sure they actually work. Because about half of the types of stormproof matches I've ever bought have been completely useless. Either they don't light, or they break, or they burn up in 2 or 3 seconds so that you can't light anything with them. So get something that works and try them. Be sure that they work before you go out. If you should be somewhere where you actually can get firewood, then of course you need something to cut it with. So a knife or an axe. This is nothing special for winter, just a small light hiking knife which, yeah, you should always have that in your backpack for a lot of reasons. You would like to have heat for two reasons. One is to keep warm, of course, and the other would be to prepare food. But it's not always possible in winter. So one critical part in winter is having food that you can eat outdoors when it's cold. I have some selections here. For example, beef jerky can work. You can have peanuts. You can have some energy bars or something else. One very important part with that is that you have something that you know you can actually eat if it's really cold. So if you're going out in minus 20 degrees Celsius and you bring an energy bar, then that is probably gonna be rock hard and you will break your teeth, which will give you another problem. So have some food that you know will work for the weather you're in. And should you fall out in winter, you need a lot of energy to keep yourself nice and warm until you can be rescued. So have a decent amount of food. For any hike in winter, I always pack food so I can be there until the next day. So if I'm hiking out in the evening, I have perhaps 1 or 2 of these field ration packs with me so that I can survive until the day after. Another thing that's strictly not an emergency thing, but it's a winter thing, it's the gas you cook with. If you're going to cook in winter, then be sure that you get what's called a winter mix. I think most major suppliers of gas have them, and that is gas that works below 5 degrees Celsius. This gas can work down to maybe minus 20 degrees Celsius, while normal or summer gas mix is completely useless when it's not that cold. You also need to make sure that your burner will work when it's cold. I have one that I can't use when it's cold. The gaskets, they just contract and they leak gas everywhere. The first time I tried using that in winter was inside a tent and it nearly burned down the tent, which would have been a very bad day. Water is another critical thing. You may think that since you have snow everywhere, then you have water. That's not true. To convert snow into water or melting it, that takes an insane amount of energy. You do not want to take that energy from your body, so you don't want to drink or eat snow, and you don't want to waste gas or other heating things to melt that water, unless you have a big campfire and lots of firewood. So I always bring water. One issue I found out the first time I hiked properly in winter was that the drinking straws here on these camelbacks or any other kind of backpack drinking pouch like this, they freeze up completely solid during winter. So as long as you're a few degrees below freezing, then they are completely useless. If you've ever tried drinking from one of these water pouches without using the tube, then you know how horrible that is. At least the ones I've tried, you will spill a lot of water on yourself, you'll get wet, you will waste your water, you will get cold. So what I do during winter is actually bringing some sort of bottle like this. Big open mouth and really easy to drink from. When you are out in winter, it's gonna get dark. So I always bring some sort of light. Normally I bring a headlight, and with the ones I have with modern lithium batteries, it will last for most of the night. So it's not an issue with extra batteries. Sometimes if I'm going for a longer hike, I will bring extra batteries, or I will bring a spare flashlight, something like this. And any kind of spare flashlight which is made to work outside is gonna work. And trying to walk without the flashlight in the dark when you're not familiar in hard terrain, that is also insanely dangerous. If you see below me here, it's ice. Everything here is slippery. Stepping wrong here can break a leg, it can break other body parts. So it's something you would like to avoid doing. If you ever fall and you break a leg or you get injured somehow so you can't get out, then your last resort may be something like this, thermal foil. And this is something I always have in my backpack, this tiny lightweight one, and I always have this even in summer. I've tested these ones, for example, during Red Cross exercises, and they provide a lot of heat, but they're not very rugged, and for a SOTA expedition this may not be good enough, at least for rather extreme situations. A few years back I decided to upgrade and I bought some of these ones. These ones do not buy them. It's called Life Systems thermal bag, and these ones are dangerous. They're a sort of sleeping bag, and they're not made good. When I tried to put it on, it's more than big enough for me, then it simply fell apart. And I sat there with two pieces of plastic that just blew away in the wind, and it was completely useless. And that brings me to one quite important point with these ones. Test them. There are some bad ones out there, like this one, which is a crappy product. And test them. Don't test them on a nice and warm day like today. Test them a day when it's windy, it's wet, and just find somewhere and try it out. And then you'll see if it can actually save you or not. So for now I'm just using the small lightweight one. I know it works. But I also got this one. This is from a Norwegian retailer. I don't remember the name of it. Compared to the small one, it's just enormous. It takes a lot of space. It weighs, I believe, 400 grams or something. So it's quite chunky. But for some sort of expeditions, I do think it would be very safe to have this one. So I would like to try it out, just see how it feels. So this is of course a situation you wouldn't find yourself in with a nice bench next to a road, but it is a perfect place to test something like this out. So this one, this immediately feels a lot more rugged. This is stitched, and it's a huge cover. It's got two sides, thermal reflective, which you're supposed to have into you, and then another outside. And this just feels like a blanket. It's rugged, it's really nice. This isn't the proper test, I just wanted to see like what's the build quality on this. And this is rugged plastic. I can't tear this. It has stitching, it has proper edges. This seems like a much better product. And it's half the price of this thing. I'm going to show you how this one worked, at least when I tried it last time. It did tear insanely easily. So you rip the bag, and this can't be resealed again. Inside here you have another resealable bag, so it's not that easy to pack. And I remember trying to pack this down last time and it was completely useless. It's also hard to tear. There's no tear open here. And if you're trying to do this while cold and while you're out and your hands may be frozen, you fell through a lake, something like this, then I do not want to have to struggle with opening something like this. I can probably get it really quickly open with a key or something like that, but still, this is bad packaging for an emergency product. And in here you have thermal foil. You can see how much more time I used to unpack this one, and still I have to find out which way is in, because that is not easy to find. I believe it's this side, but it's not there. It's open. So this foil, this is mostly the same as that other foil I had, one like the small foil bag. It's the same as you would find, for example, in a helium balloon or something like this. So the shape of this one is a sleeping bag, and I can imagine, for example, if you're able to lie down here, maybe I would be able to get into it. But if I was somewhere where it was windy, like it was when I tried putting it on last time, then it would rip. And this one, it only has a small seal on the side here. It's a double seal, and the problem here, just look at this, is a completely new product. And I'm just barely tearing, and then it rips. And then it's useless. Because when it ripped on one side, the wind got in and it ripped the other part as well. And then I sat there basically with this, which is a very thin piece of plastic, which you can't hold around you properly. You can't put it below you, and it's way too long. So again, the Life System one, don't buy it. I would say that I have no affiliation with life systems at all. And from my comments here, probably you would guess that I didn't have either, and probably wouldn't in the future. But they do actually make good products as well. So I would like to show you one that I tested a few weeks back. I filmed this during a hurricane. It was an amazing experience. I also did a POTA activation then. As you can see, it's windy here, and one of the things I wanted to try out was this emergency shelter, and this is the kind of conditions I needed. So it's time to check. So now I'm inside the shelter. As you can see, it's just a small bag of orange plastic, some Gore-Texy material. It is windproof, but you can feel the wind through it, of course, like with anything. And I have a feeling that if it rained a lot, you would get really moist in here. But it is probably a lot better than that alternative, and it was really quick to get up there. So this is something I'm gonna keep using. It's not gonna bring me any kind of heat, but it will get you out of the elements. In the part about the storm shelter, you saw me activate during hurricane force winds. And I did that in a safe location. It was not far from the road. It was mostly flat terrain, and there was no huge challenges. That day I would never have gone to a SOTA summit. So knowing your limits and the limits of your equipment, and knowing how your area works in different weather, that is critical to keeping safe. So that's how I keep safe during my hikes. I've actually never had to use any of this emergency equipment, and I'm really happy for that, but I'm always prepared to use it if I need to, either to help myself or to help somebody else. So it's not really that hard, and just to sum up, bring the equipment you need for the hike you're going to. You don't need a snow shovel in a forest. You don't need ice spikes if you're on a hike to a summit where there's no water, and so on and so on. Just pack the stuff you need, then you're saving weight as well. And then enjoy your winter activations. It is really fun to be out. It is usually more challenging, which for many people is quite fun. Have fun. Thank you very much for watching, and 7-3.